Hello and welcome to Blender Bite Size. In this video I'll be showing you how to make this material procedurally in Blender. Feeling lazy? You can support this channel and skip the hard work by grabbing the blend file for this material from Gumroad for just £1. Feeling flush? Feel free to throw some of that coin my way using the coffee link in the description below the video. Okay, let's make a start. First up, a quick look at the layout. I've got my usual sort of background, 3 light setup pointing at the object and 1 at the background, and then my camera just face on. Something very, very simple. I've modelled a very badly modelled vase shape, but this should work with any 3D shape. So we'll switch over to the shading tab and we'll enable viewport shading. We're going to be using cycles and the GPU. Now I've got one material here already, but for this we're actually going to need 2. So while that's in its basic state, I'm just going to duplicate that, drop it down, press Ctrl Shift and right click and drag between the two to add a mix shader. And we're going to bring that up because we'll need to find something to put into the factor. So the first thing that we're going to add is a texture coordinate. We'll pop that way back here. I'm going to take the object value, plug that into the factor of the mix shader. We're going to add a mapping node, a wave texture, a math node. Not a lot's happening at the moment, don't panic, we'll come back to it. We're then going to duplicate the mapping node and pop that just after the math node. We're going to have a separate XYZ after that, followed by another math node. Whew, it's quite a lot, isn't it? So if we select all those and press Shift equals, because I've got the node wrangler enabled, it will line them all up. So let's also use Shift W to frame that, or Shift P in fact. Press N to open the properties panel on the right, and let's name this so we know what we can edit later on. Right, let's make a couple of changes. First up, the first mapping node, we're going to change the scale to 2. For the wave texture, we're going to set the scale at 0.1, distortion at 100, detail at 5, let's say 5.5 for now. And so that we can actually see what's happening here, I'm just going to preview this in its entirety rather than running it through the mix shader. So to do that, you press Ctrl Shift and then click on whichever node you want to preview, and it takes into account everything that comes before. Now, a couple of other changes. Detail scale, let's drop to 0.35. Roughness all the way up to 1. Offset we'll leave alone. We're going to change the first math node to multiply, and we'll leave that value at 0.5. Leave the mapping node here as it is, but we're going to take the object output from the texture coordinate and plug that into the vector, and this math node is going to go into the location. Now, no changes other than that for this. We're going to take the Z value from the separate XYZ and plug that into this math node. Make sure this other one doesn't hook up. And then we're going to set the math node to compare. So now you can see we've got this area of black here, and then the patterning coming through. So the patterning's coming from this wave texture. The multiply is kind of intensifying or desaturating that colorway. This mapping node is giving us some additional detail, which is being adjusted here. So the Z value is going up and down, X value is going across, and Y value is going front and back. That's why we're using the Z value. Then the compare is basically comparing it and stripping out all the other information apart from the black and white values, which can be controlled by these two values here. So this first one, value, controls the position, and then this second one, the epsilon, controls the intensity. So if we drop that down, you can see that it now looks quite cool, in fact. And then you can position that. You could position that around the neck of the vase, around the base of the vase, or for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just doing it around the center. So those are the two values you want to do for movement and for intensity. And then obviously you can fiddle with these, but they will have big changes when you come to do this. Let's go back to the mix shader. Nothing's going on here right now, and that's because we're mixing two white principled shaders. So let's change this around. We're going to plug the top one into the bottom and then the bottom one into the top, if that makes sense. We're going to set this as our decal detail material. So let's give it a goldish feel. So we'll set this base color to something gold, something yellowy gold. And then metallic value to 0.8, specular to 0.5, roughness to, let's say, 0.1. Yeah, 0.1. And then we'll leave everything as it is for now. And then for the base material, we're going to leave, let's make it a black ceramic vase. So we'll drop this to 0.001, which is almost completely black, but just not quite. Specular we'll leave at 0.5. Roughness will drop 0.1. Clear coat we're going to push all the way up, but with a roughness of 0.035. And that, in essence, is the material. What I am going to do, however, is add a little bit of extra detail to the surface. So for that, I'm going to need another texture coordinate. Another mapping node. A noise texture. Color ramp. And I'm going to need two bump nodes, and I'll explain why in a second. So we're going to take the object value from the texture coordinate into the mapping, vector to vector, factor to factor, color to height, and the same here. And then each one of these is going to go into one of its own principled shader, so normal to normal. For the top one, we're going to have 0.5 as the strength and 0.001 as the distance. Now it's a bit of a mess right now because I need to change the scale on the noise texture to 1, the detail to 15. And so again, so we can see better what's happening here, let's go to yes, let's go to that one. 15, roughness to 1, So you can see there is just some texture going on here. It's not a huge amount. And this is basically going into the metallic effect. So it's giving us a slightly rough metallic texture or 3D effect going on there. Now for the ceramic, we're going to go again for 0.5. Let's select that so we can see it. And distance this time 0.001. Okay. So again, let's organize these. Oops. Frame them. Bump detail. So if we now go back to the mix shader, essentially what we have is our base material of the glossy ceramic and our glossy metallic gold, and they're basically being separated out by this black and white value. So wherever the black is, this bottom material is coming through, and wherever white is, this metallic material is coming through. Now using this, you could basically replace these two principal shaders with whatever materials you fancy, so you can mix your own materials together and come up with an entirely different looking effect. And of course you could even switch out perhaps the wave texture for a Musgrave or a noise texture and play around that way. But don't forget, these two figures here on the compare node are the ones that will control the position and the intensity of that patterning. Okay, let me very quickly render that out for you. I'm using only 256 samples and we'll take a look at that. And there we go, an adjustable decal that you can work on a range of different 3D surfaces. I hope you found that useful in some way, whether it's this project or a future project. If you've got any questions, feel free to post them below the video. Even anything you want to just add, feel free. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave today, and of course give the video a thumbs up. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon.